So that was Marie-Helene Primo from Premier Continuum, our sponsor. I had a great little chat. She's been on the show a couple of times actually now. So it was great to have her as a sponsor this time around and chat and see what Premier Continuum is up and doing.
Alex, you threw me off. You said XYZ and not XYZ. I was like, wait a minute. You're talking to a Canadian. I know we're in the US. Which one am I supposed to use?
But I was born in England, so sometimes it's a little different. Now I really mess things up.
Now we're going to a third party.
Blame it on the third party, right?
Configuration issues. Exactly. The third party is why we said Z instead of Z.
That's right.
Well, it looks like, Alex, lunch is winding down. It's getting quieter. Maybe people ate a big lunch and they're getting sleepy, or both.
I can hear things again.
I know. I can hear myself. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, I liked what Marie-Helene said about call trees, because I wanted to share a story. I think I mentioned it to you. When I first started in this industry back in '96, I got into it, and the role was to develop call trees for a large program that a financial institution in Canada was doing, and it was a very, very large program. And the role was to develop call trees for it in case something went wrong, because there was a huge impact if something did. And they called the role business recovery plan, which is the old term that we kind of used to use years ago. And that's how it started for me, building call trees. So it's when she mentioned that, my memory just went right back. Like, oh my God, I remember doing that.
Flashbacks.
What's your name? What's your number? Who do you report to? And then building that whole thing.
Let me ask you: have you ever activated a call tree that worked all the way to the bottom of the tree?
No.
Thanks.
No, I've never seen one work.
I've never. That's always my point. When people are like, we don't want to buy a tool, we use a call tree. And so I'm like, okay, build a call tree, test it. Let me know if the person at the bottom of the tree gets a call.
I remember working.
And how long it takes.
Yeah.
I did have one organization that like, hey, we did it. And I was like, okay, when did you start the call tree? And they told me, when did you finish the call tree? It was 48 hours later.
Oh, I can top that. It was a week for this one client before they finished everything.
It's the bottom, the incident's over.
Well, people were away. People thought, because it was coming from a 1-800 number at the time, people thought it was marketing, so they weren't responding. Then they were showing up in the office, and the bosses were going, "You didn't respond to the call. I was trying to call you on the weekend." And they're like, "What call?"
Well, and especially in this day and age, to your point, for our audience, Alex's phone has been blowing up today.
Oh yeah,
like he is the most famous person in the world. So when my phone rings and I don't recognize the number or it's not a contact, I don't even answer it. So if we were in a call tree environment, I'm not answering. I'm sending you to voicemail.
Yeah, I do the same thing. There's so many 1-800 numbers. Well, it's not even 800 now. There's so many different exchange numbers that get used.
Exactly.
The 877, 888, 800, and many others. So if I don't know the number, I'm not answering the phone. Forget it.
Correct.
Because I know 9 out of 10 times, if not almost 10 out of 10 times, it's not somebody I know. If it's somebody I know, they're in my phone, and I see their name. So
I don't know what that says. That every one of us has the most advanced communication device in the history of the world in our pocket, and we don't answer it when it's a phone call.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's a phone. What do I do? We're only used to text and cameras.
We talked about this earlier. I get phone calls from 2 people, my father and my son, when he's in trouble. That phone's actually ringing, and I know it. It's one of those two.
It's my best friend and my mom, always. Yeah, exactly. Everybody else is text or an email.
That's Alex's call tree.
Yep, that's it.
Call tree.
Yeah, I remember doing the call trees, having to ask so many people, who do you report to? What's your name? What are your numbers? Why do you need that information? And this is the days when you could collect and ask that information.
Yeah,
when you could say, well, I need your home number for, if we have to call you an emergency. Oh, okay. And I'd write it down, or they send it in an email. put it into my spreadsheet. And, nowadays, if I went out and asked that, HR would all be, they'd kill me.
You can't do
Like,
that.
what are you doing? You can't ask for that information. Well, do you have a call tree? Asking HR. No. Well,
No,
then
of course
then
not.
you've got to do something.
Just
But
amazing.
yeah, my example was a week.
A week.
Because it was a government agency as well.
It's on a Friday, like, hey, we're closed for a snow day on Monday. Like, what's the relevancy?
Oh, don't get me started on the snow day. And that I worked with another client just before I got there. They had a big snowstorm, and everybody in the headed to the office. Most people were heading to the office. It was before people could work at home, and the only ones who could were the executives. So they weren't doing anything at home anyway. They'd go golfing or, well, in winter skiing maybe or
They
something.
went golfing
So
in the winter. That's
yeah,
mad
well,
respect.
they got on a plane and went. But they stayed home. Major snowstorm. Most of the staff drove through all this snowstorm. It would take them 3 hours to get there. One person took 3.5 hours. And when they got there, executives who stayed home decided to send out an email saying, "Oh, the snow is bad. Everyone stay at home."
Even though
It's
you're
like,
already in the
you're
office. So now you
already
drive
there.
3 hours back.
Well, get this. People were so pissed off. One person called the local talk radio station, got on the air, named the company, and said what the executives did.
Wow.
Yeah. So their policies and procedures changed immediately. They gave themselves a really bad rep. Luckily, that happened before I was there. And they got an application to send out emails and texts and things like that right off the bat because they didn't want that to happen. People were so angry, with three hours to get in and then 3 hours to get home. So their entire day was spent in their car. They weren't happy about it.
I can imagine. So if you're listening right now and your organization has had a BC snafu,
Yeah.
send it to Alex and I. We can anonymize it if you'd like. We're happy. I always like to discuss real world incidents and real world response.
Yes. Let's learn from those mistakes. Share all that with everybody. That's why I brought it up. Hey, here's something to learn for any executive listening. Don't do that.
So yeah, we had obviously, as everyone knows, I live in Florida, so from time to time we have these things called hurricanes. And I'm thinking of one time for a company, we actually had a mass notification. We thought we did everything right? We had a mass notification system. We had an API from our HRIS to the mass notification system. It was updated every night. And so we sent out a message at 5 a.m. before people were getting on the road. Like, hey, the office is closed, don't get on the roads. And we're all, so proud of ourselves. And then it turned out that our contractors and some of our vendors were not in the mass notification system. So they showed up. And so seems like there's always, every time you run a drill or you run a live event, you learn something. But I remember just thinking, like, so proud, like, oh, we set this out at 5 a.m. People aren't even on the road. We've got the most up-to-date list possible. And there were some of our vendors who had contractors on site
Still showed.
never got the message.
That I find that interesting because a lot of organizations, they tell contractors, now that you work for us, even under contract, you're representing us in one way or another. But then they don't add them to the employee databases or some of the other pieces.
That was our miss, was we didn't realize that their names were in the HRIS and their contractor email, like their cell phone number, their personal information, like we had for our employees, we did not have for our contractors.
Yeah.
So they didn't get the message.
Yeah, I've been in that spot. I worked for a large financial institution. They would always say that you're a contractor, so you're kind of considered an employee, but then they would send out emails, about a change in policy, and contractors would never know. So we continue doing it the old way. Then management or leadership would get upset. What are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. Well, how am I supposed to know? You never told me. Even though you told me I'm an employee and I'm supposed to get all this information, you don't do it. And it used to happen all the time.
Amazing. So, Alex, we are closing the fourth hour, I think, of our broadcast. Someone's either blowing a whistle sporadically or I'm going delirious.
Yeah.
Possibly both. We will let you know at the top of the hour. We do want to mention that this hour was brought to you by Premier Continuum. Premier Continuum has been a trusted leader in business continuity and resilience for over 25 years, offering three powerful services: professional consulting, certified training, and an award-winning software, Air Solution. Air Solutions standardization approach follows best practices such as ISO 22301 and the BCI, while its impressive configurability can fit any culture and organizational structure. Working with Premier Continuum and Air Solutions is building smart resilience.
Their whistle keeps going. But thank you
I'm
to
glad that you are the whistle too.
thank you to Premier Continuum for this hour and speaking with Midi Helene. We've had a great time chatting today. We still have one more hour to go